Welcome everyone to the new YESCO Expense Reporting mobile app. So as you can see here, we've updated the mobile app for expense reporting. So it has a very simple and clean user experience, kind of like the desktop. It is a more simple interface here. You can't do as much, but you can do a lot of the functionality, the same functionality. We are in a supervisor's role, so we do have the expenses to approve button here as well. But everyone should have the My Expenses option, the My Receipts option, and the Mileage Reimbursement option. And supervisors will have this Expenses to Approve button as well. So the app's very simple. There's not too many options. Clicking the hamburger menu up in the top left hand corner opens up kind of, once again, a small menu where you can navigate to the different areas, but it also provides you with your name, your location, or your subsidiary, and a logout button. Clicking off of the white rectangle takes you back to the main screen. We're going to dive right into the My Expenses. As you can see, there are badges that tell you how many there are in that list. So there's 370 expenses in My Expenses right now, in my unsubmitted expenses. And there's 13 expenses for me to approve. This is in a testing environment, so we don't keep it up to date as much as you should when it's the final product. So hopefully you can keep your unsubmitted expenses under 370. But looking in here, we have our list of expenses up at the top. In the banner, you have a back arrow that takes you back to the main screen, and then you have these two kind of folder tabs at the top. This first one is your unsubmitted, so when highlighted, all of the expenses below are unsubmitted expenses. When you click on the submitted tab, it moves over there, it highlights it, and now all of your expenses that are shown are your submitted expenses. So looking at the unsubmitted expenses, we have the merchant name, we have the date of the transaction, and the total amount. Clicking on anywhere on that line opens up the expense details, where we see the merchant name and the total amount of the expense again. We see the address of the merchant and the transaction date again. These red areas are required before submitting your expense to be approved. So the business purpose must be entered. Expense allocations have to be edited, and there has to be at least one allocation in there. Allocations work very similarly to the desktop, the browser application. So to edit the expense allocations, we click this oval edit button. It brings us to this new page where we can click on account. We can search it, or we can scroll through and find the account that we want. And then clicking same with locations, and then once you either select it, it takes you back to the screen, or if you want to cancel it once you're in there, you can just press that back arrow up in the top. The department works the same way. The amount, or the sum of all of the allocations, must equal the total of the expense. But for example, if you're editing them and you don't really remember, if you try to save that expense, it'll pop up an error and it'll tell you what the total of the allocation was right there. So you can say, oh, I need to add 45 cents instead of 40 cents on there. So adding that, clicking the plus up in the top right hand corner adds a second allocation. You can go in and fill that out. Once again, just like the web app in your browser, the account, the location, and the department will be predetermined. or it'll be preset through your user preferences. If you don't have anything in these fields, if it doesn't show up, or if it's incorrect, contact YESCO support and they'll get that straightened out. Clicking the little trash can to the right of the allocation number deletes that specific allocation. You click to dismiss any of the errors or updates, and then clicking the green save button at the bottom will save that allocation to the expense. As you can see now, we updated the location, so it now says Boise instead of Salt Lake. Linked receipts are also required before submitting. As you can see, there already is a receipt on here. It shows you the date the receipt was created, and at the bottom of the receipt, in the bottom right hand corner, you have an unlink option. Clicking that removes the receipt from the expense, and then clicking the find receipt button to the right of the red linked receipts brings you back to a list of all your receipts you have uploaded, either using your mobile application or using the desktop app. So we're gonna just relink that same receipt we had on there. It says at the top that our link was successful, and we see that that receipt again. When we're all ready to submit an expense to be approved, we hit the green submit button across the bottom. It brings up a warning to make sure that we are wanting to submit this. We then confirm it by clicking submit again. Our expense has been submitted. So now it's no longer on the list of unsubmitted expenses. It is now in our submitted expenses list right here at the top. Here's the expense we just submitted. It is still editable because it is pending approval. As you can see on here, we kind of have a status of where your expense is in the process. It'll either say pending, approved, or rejected. All of these are pending approvals right now, but while it is pending, it is still editable, and you can go in there, add receipts, change the business purpose, change allocations. Once it is rejected or approved, you will not be able to go in and edit that information. So just by clicking the back arrow in the top left hand of the screen, we get back to the main menu. As you can see now, that badge is now updated. We had 370, we now have 369 expenses that are unsubmitted. So one unique feature is at the bottom of almost every screen, unless there are some specific screen actions, we have the upload receipt and the capture receipt button. Clicking on the upload receipt on the left hand side will take you to your phone's camera roll. So clicking that, it'll take you to all the pictures you have taken. Clicking back cancels that selection, and it takes you to your receipts. But clicking that upload receipt takes you to your camera roll. So if you didn't have service, or you took pictures of your receipts with your normal camera, you can go in and then upload them from there. If you want to upload a receipt by using the camera directly through the app, you can click on the capture receipt button in the bottom right hand side with the little camera icon. This will take you to your camera. You then take a picture of the receipt. It's best if you take the picture with your phone vertically, so it fits better on the screen. After taking that picture, you will there will be a "Are you sure?" kind of like a save or a check button. You click that done or check button, and then it will upload the receipt here into the My Receipts area. So that is the second button down, is the My Receipts, and this is just a list of all the receipts you've either uploaded or taken a picture of. As you can see, those buttons are still available on this screen. But if we go into a receipt detail, we kind of see the name of the file and the date that the receipt was taken, or the picture was taken. Going in, it makes the picture bigger, we can see it, and then instead of the two camera options, or the upload options at the bottom, we now have some action items. we can either delete the receipt permanently, or we can link the receipt to an expense. So you don't have to go to an expense to link the receipts. You could take a bunch of pictures of receipts and then just go in and link them through here if that is quicker for you. So I'm going to click that link button in the bottom right hand side. It takes me to the expenses. You can link it to an unsubmitted or submitted expense. Just clicking on the expense links the receipt and takes you back to your list of receipts. And now you can see that that receipt that is now linked is no longer in the queue here. And the queue is ordered by the most recent receipts to the older receipts, so you can kind of work down from there. We're going to click the back arrow in the top left hand side to get back to the main menu now. So here we are, and we're going to go down, we're going to skip over the expenses to approve because that's only for supervisors, and we're going to go to the mileage reimbursement button. Clicking on the mileage reimbursement button at the bottom of the screen takes us to a very similar screen of a submitted and a rejected queue. So there's a little bit of a difference in when you create a mileage reimbursement, it automatically submits that. And then it'll have a rejected queue so you know which ones did not meet the business purposes or did not qualify to be reimbursed. So we don't have any in here right now. We're going to go ahead and create one. To create a new mileage reimbursement, you click on the plus in the top right hand corner. It brings you to this screen where you enter your destination. So we're going to go to the Salt Lake office for meetings. And so once we have those two entered, we'll click the next button. And then we enter our starting odometer. So we're going to have 25,000 miles on our car. And let's say it's 20 miles to the office. So 25,020 miles. And we're going to submit that expense. It gives you a notification at the top that it's been submitted. And you have all of your information about that mileage reimbursement right here. You can see it's pending approval. It was a 20-mile trip, and the reimbursement amount is automatically calculated right there. Clicking on that brings you the details where you can edit and resubmit, but it is submitted to your supervisor for approval at this point. If your supervisor goes in and rejects it, it will show up in here and it'll stay in there for a specified amount of time. So to create more, you just keep clicking that plus and they'll show up in here on that list. If they are approved or rejected, they're moved off of this list and moved into the rejected list up at the top. Clicking the back button, it'll take us back to the home screen. So if you are not a supervisor, those are pretty much the main functionalities of this mobile application, and hopefully it's easy to use. If you have any questions or problems using the application, please reach out to the YESCO software support. If you are a supervisor, we're going to go into the expenses to approve tab. So moving in here, we just see a list of expenses from those people that we are a supervisor for. We can then click on the expense, see the business purpose, see the receipt, make sure everything is good. We can make some small edits if necessary. And then at the bottom of the expense screen, we have the options to reject or approve. Clicking the reject button brings us to this new screen where we can input our rejection reason, not a business expense. And then you have the option to send it back to the employee to, let's say the employee made a mistake, they entered a wrong account information, or their allocations were messed up, or they needed more information. You can write what you need fixed and send that back to the employee, and that'll send it back to their unsubmitted queue. Or you can do a payroll reduction. It's automatically shows the total amount of the allocation in here for payroll. But if you want to remove, like, let's say half, you can. But clicking that payroll reduction permanently rejects it and deducts that amount out of the payroll for that employee. So we're not going to actually reject this expense, but that is how it works. Very similar to the old expense reporting system, but you can do it in the app. You can either hit the back button up in the top left or hit cancel. It brings you back to the expense details. Hitting the approve button in the bottom right hand corner, since everything checks out here, will approve that expense and move it on for the controllers, accountants to process it and move it into NetSuite. Hitting the back button takes us back to the home screen, and that is pretty much everything that you need to know about the YESCO Expense Reporting mobile app. Thanks so much, and we hope you guys have a great day. And if you have any problems, once again, reach out to YESCO support.